Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Newman's Bogus Hangout. Have our guests introduce themselves. Thomas, will you start?
Hi, I'm Tom Zickel, founder of Blueprint Marketing, MTI PolyX Corporation.
Terry?
Terry Van Horn, Toronto, Ontario, retired.
And Steve?
Steve Grinzer with Web Narwhal now.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. So we had some interesting news today. One of the interesting stories is search engines are using Index Now. Well, not all search engines are using indexing now to try to speed up how quickly pages get indexed in search engines. And it reminded me of something I heard about 2 years ago at PubCon, when there was talk about submitting URLs to Bing to get them indexed quickly from places like LinkedIn. And it seems like it's an offshoot, but it's not quite the same thing, this Index Now.
No, I like it. In fact, I wish Google would actually adopt it. I mean,
so Google's been using PubSub, Hub, Nub, whatever, for years.
For a decade.
So they ping when a website updates, it pings the search engine immediately saying we've got new content. And when I add something using Google's Search Console, the page is usually indexed within minutes.
Yeah, but there's a limit to how many you can actually. I think all search engines will have a certain amount that they'll crawl based on the crawl budget for your site or just how often. But like the ability to actually pull like what Index Now does, I think would be a great feature for Google to.
Well, I can.
It already does that.
I can count in a single hand the number of pages I update and add to my site at a time.
Oh, of course, yeah. But like, imagine like you can index redirects this way, or put them into the search. Like I think Index Now, from what I understand, I guess John replied something to the effect of, we don't want to be indexed as often or something like that.
No, he was kidding. That was a joke.
Yeah, of course. But
here's the bottom line. Google collects information during the crawl that no other search engine does, and they'll never do it for that reason. Because they don't want to share that data with the other search engines.
But I don't think they're going to be sharing data that
they do share data. Read the article.
Okay. Well, they own 10% of Cloudflare, which is another weird part of it. I actually, I read a lot on it. But you're telling me that indexnow.org is going to share the data with the other search engines?
You have to share the data with the other search engines.
It's an agreement like XML sitemaps was an agreement between the number of search engines.
And
it wasn't a standard, but it was something a lot of people agreed to. And it helps index things quickly.
Yeah, and if you have WordPress, Ping is built into it.
Yep.
As soon as you publish. So redundant service, in my opinion, not something I would spend a lot of time on.
I mean, that is true. WordPress is pinging search engines.
Yeah, they are. It'd be interesting to see, like, if we actually are able to submit sites after migrations and big changes very easily. It'd be a little bit nicer to do it this way. I think that there is some value to this new type of system, but I can understand if Google doesn't want to share. Like, I don't see how they would actually share like private information or critical information with.
It says right in the article that that's what's going on.
They have to, but they you can submit via a ping or a sitemap or So they're sharing proprietary information.
Okay.
I apologize. I might be confused on something though.
I think us older folks, folks who've been in SEO for a long time, remember the days of Alta Vista.
Yeah.
When to get pages indexed, you had to submit URL by URL, your site. And this is sort of a flow back towards that.
The best part about that with Alta Vista, though, was you could use that to test changes to your page to see what it did to your rankings, because they also updated their rankings in almost real time.
InfoSeek, when it was doing that, Steve, do you remember? It'd tell you, oh, this is spam. So you know when you've reached your limit, you just cut it back some and you're 100%.
Yep.
Those are the good old days. SEO was easy then.
Now,
Right.
having some easy bulk submit would be awesome. We just dealt with a client who had an employee leave, and the employee no indexed everything. And yeah, so now we're in the process of trying to resubmitted sitemaps and the whole bit. And Google's like, thanks for sending us these 6,000 pages, but 60 or 5,900 of them are no index. And it's like, no, they're not. You need to recrawl these. It's
If
going to
you
be
took the index pages, Steve, I don't know if Google still does this, but you can give them a new URL and tell it to follow all the links off of it. Does it still do that? I've been a long time since I used that feature.
I think what we're going to do is put together a real quick HTML sitemap and get that noticed.
Yeah, a new URL would definitely get it.
Yeah.
Send Google.
Yeah, who knew that the employee they let go knew as much about it as he did, because he got help. They were pulled out of the search console and everything.
So he intentionally set it to no follow, no index, or no index, and then just walked out the door because he'd been fired or something.
Yep.
Wow, what a prick.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been so bad. They didn't call me for like 2 or 3 weeks because I don't look at their stuff every day. That's not what I do for them. And they go, well, we're traffic to the website's dropping dramatically. It's like, let me take a look. Oh, here's the problem. Let me just flick that switch in WordPress and let's see what happens.
Robotstxt disallow.
Oh my God,
they did it through a plugin in WordPress, Steve?
It's a checkbox in WordPress that says, I don't want my site indexed.
Right. Okay. Like when you're building it, you tick that so it doesn't index it. Okay.
Exactly.
I'll tell you this much. I did that. The minute, if you even untick that for a second to go and check something so you can get it checked, they're on your site right away, indexing the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So I was auditing like maybe 30 or 40 sites a week for one SEO firm I work for. And so a certain percentage, maybe 5% of those had that box checked still.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So here's your reason why you're not getting any visitors to your website. You told them you don't want it indexed.
Yeah. I've come across that with a lot of audits as well, like new clients or things like that, and it's just like, oh, there's a big problem here. Yeah. But it's definitely an easy fix, thank goodness. But at the same time,
I'm trying to crawl your website and I can't crawl it. I need access to the admin section.
I've always thought that button, instead of saying discourage search engine, should say don't get any visitors ever.
Yes. Block search engines is a better word, not discourage. I think it's because they don't want to give people a false sense of security by ticking that box.
Yeah.
That would be indexed. Yeah.
Well, because if somebody links to a page, Google will still it won't index the page, but it will include it in the search results.
Yeah, you're right, because it just does a no follow. It doesn't actually do a no index. So like, Yeah, because just robots.txt.
Or no index doesn't mean that it's not going to show up in the results. It can if somebody links to the page.
I've always thought that no index does mean that, and that no follow means that if it links to the page, then it can do that. So like if you do robots.txt no follow, it shows up. But
a robots.txt is a don't crawl.
right, or like if you did
But it's not a don't index.
Right.
So if someone links to a page that's not something that can't be crawled because of robots.txt, it'll still be indexed. The description will say a description of this page cannot be provided.
We're blocked or something like that to that effect.
It says, it doesn't say we're blocked and we can't crawl. It just says a description will not be provided.
Has not been. Has not been.
I think it also says we know about this page, but we haven't crawled it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Pretty close to the same message you get if you got too much duplicate content. There are many more pages that are very similar to this one.
It's like when you do a search for a page on a site and you know the title and you quote the title and you do the search and you see the page and say, there it is. It says, that's interesting. This page cannot be crawled. Yeah.
That would be why it doesn't rank, right, Steve? Right?
It doesn't help.
I noticed something the other day while working on WordPress that they no longer really use the no follow thing unless you tell it. The default, they used the default to index follow and put that tag in even though it wasn't needed. Now the default is the default for the size of picture that you want in the results. And it's almost impossible to remove it. I had to code it out basically in order to remove that tag. Because it's put in some deep routine in the head composition when it renders the head. It's deep in there somewhere. So I had to look up the robots tag, how they do it, and basically figure out how to remove that. However,
I think I know what you're talking about. Was it provided by like a plugin like Yoast?
Well, it's a Google tag. It's not a protocol tag. It's a strictly Google tag. It tells Google what size of pictures you want in results. So you can set standard, large, and thumbnail, I believe.
Yeah, open graph or structured data. Yeah.
Well, it's an HTTP robots code. That's now what Google has introduced this tag.
That's interesting. That's really cool.
You can look it up on the WordPress docs. Look up robot.
I think I've seen it recently, and like some of the.
It's a new tag. Actually, I believe Yoast added to his plugin to remove it because a lot of people don't want that in their site at all. It's just another useless tag. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And like, if any of you guys have had any luck with signed images with URL tokens to make your site quicker?
I haven't even tried.
What's that?
I guess having you can pre-cache through Google by having pre-signed private tokens, and it will basically cache. Google indexes the site. It'll then cache it through the server using a reverse proxy or something similar to that, and you can that token will tell Google when it caches it to actually pre-cache the Java and CSS and HTML of the site, so it would make it a little bit faster. It's an interesting idea. I haven't seen it in practice yet. at least not up close. But I was interested if anyone had tried it.
Not I.
No, I'm saving it for my spare time.
Yeah. No.
Speed wise, I just put OP cash on it. And
Ever since I started working half days, and those
Yeah.
12 hours go by quickly.
Yes.
half days, so 12 hours go by quickly.
24-hour day is a rough one.
Yeah, Steve at noon would say, "Yeah, my day's half done, right, Steve?"
I
I
wish.
remember those days.
Yep. It's like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. So, how many of y'all saw the thing about review snippets with authors' names being limited to 100 characters or less?
Yeah, I'm in trouble, I guess. No.
I was telling Terry about the ex-Eagles linebacker Joe Panos, and when he was in elementary school, he changed his name to Joe Panos because the original version of his name was really long, and he told the teacher, "I can't spell this."
You can't. Your name is so long you can't spell it. Oh,
Yeah.
I had a landlord from India that had a name that was almost 40-something characters, his last name. I couldn't pronounce it at all. Yeah. And his first name was very long as well, but not close to. I mean, he'd be scared, I guess, over this type of thing, but I don't see it impacting many real often. Like not a lot of people, at least from the United States. I don't know how many people have names that long.
I'm not even sure that 100 characters would fit in the real estate that Google allows in the search, because I think it's only about 65 characters.
I think they want to avoid the fictional names.
Yeah.
It's like fictional names with blog comments. I used to get blog comments from people where they'd use a name in another language other than English to stand for something. And I'd have to use Google Translate to figure out what they're writing about and whether or not I wanted to not publish their blog comment.
Or my favorite is the nickname that has 15 keywords in it. Remember those days on the forums?
Yeah, people. LinkedIn is notorious for that. Still, they'll have people will put their company, like what they do, their whole list of things after their name.
We had tag team spammers at Creative Site forums.
Oh yeah.
Somebody would show up, join, and the first thing they do would be to ask a question.
Yep.
And miraculously, someone would come along 15 seconds later with an answer, which was spam filled.
Generally has a link to.
And if you looked up the question and answer in Google, you'd see that it was done in 10 other forums before.
Oh, it's just a duplicate.
They were just copying themselves from forum to forum to forum.
Wow.
I'd see it. I'd do the search. I'd find it. I'd delete them, ban them.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, geez, talk about it. Back then, I'm sure it worked too to actually probably get some sort of. I mean, forum spammers are the worst. Any spam. Especially if you're minting a forum, that's a nightmare. I mean, deal with that stuff.
Yeah,
it was aggravating when you had people naming themselves stuff like SEO expert.
After a while, you lose your tolerance to it, and you just hammer them instantly.
Some guy calls himself SEO expert, and the first thing he asks is, "How does PageRank work?"
Or how do I 301 a site? That was my favorite.
How do I respond to an SEO client?
Oh gosh.
When we used to own SEO shop forums, we automatically had a list of just no-go words for names, and SEO was one of them. Guru was another. I mean, just
Oracle.
This is my name. No, it's not.
My parents named me Guru, like Will Smith's kid or something.
Yeah.
Or Elon Musk's child might be the only person that won't fit as an author. I think his name has a bunch of characters in it that are like numbers, even. So,
it's a Bitcoin wallet address.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there was an old comic strip in XKCD where a principal calls the parent and says, "Did you really name your child's middle name Drop Tables?" And it's like, yes, that'll teach you not to scrub data entry. The horrible things we used to do.
So, like, it looks like podcasts are going to be in the knowledge graph or panels.
I'm not seeing Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout having a knowledge graph.
Yeah, I don't know what the trigger is, but it's nothing I could find. It's not it's not like a business. It's not like a band. It seems to be the only people I've seen are people who have are in the knowledge graph already. Like Jason Barnard had one. I believe Rusty Brick, Barry Schwartz has one.
Edge of the Web was a podcast that was already in knowledge graph.
Yeah, and some of the oldest podcasts, like Dave and I did over 300 of them. Not a whiff for anybody from any of the shows or SEO radio that has 100 podcasts on Google Podcasts. So they're not even using their own resource.
So I think that's one of the big things is it has to be going through Google Podcasts for them to discover it, number one. But it also, I mean, like this show is on YouTube, but if it was a podcast, it might show up. I mean, I don't know if it would. If you're saying it takes a certain amount of shows to actually make the knowledge graph.
I've got over 300.
Yeah, this is episode 311.
Yeah, I have over 300 from the dojo too.
But if this was converted to a podcast, do you think that would
everything we did was converted to a podcast and a video? Even a hangout like this, we stripped the audio out because we knew there were people who downloaded our audio and listened to it on the way to work and stuff. We had people tell us that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, because I read some of the recent, was it like 3 months ago, Google updated the podcast documentation to say that you basically had to at least route it to their podcast system to be able to be picked up. I can shoot it over, but yeah, I have a friend, I have a good friend that has a podcast on supervised learning, and I'll see if that shows up. See if it works.
Our podcasts are on Libsyn, which adds a ton of metadata to the audio file for iTunes. That didn't get picked up either.
Oh, wow. So when's the last time it ran?
Pardon me?
When's the last time the podcast was run?
Oh, no, me and Bill did one a few months back before he had a stroke. So nothing since then. But that shouldn't have much to do with it. It's more about having them and being regular. Like I've been in over 300 podcasts.
Yeah, no, I think
not counting these ones. That's just the dojo and other people, not counting these, which I've been doing for how long, Bill, with you? 5 years, anyhow, weekly.
Somewhere around there.
Pretty close to that. Maybe longer. I can't keep track of time anymore. I'm just too old, I think.
I just sent a picture of that. I just put on supervised learning, and that podcast shows up, which is I guess just part of the algorithm. I'll ask how it's being fed if it's being fed through Google in the very beginning or not.
It does get a knowledge graph.
Yeah.
Knowledge panel.
Yep. Yep. If you type in unsupervised learning into Google, you'll see it. But it's done, I think, once weekly, and it's fairly it's an older one. It also has. Oh, I apologize. You know what? I'm looking at the Wikipedia knowledge. I'm so sorry. It does not have a podcast or podcast graph. I just looked.
I don't think this is actually for a podcast.
No, it's not. I just realized that. I just saw the name. I was like, you know what? If I put the word podcast in right after, then there it is. It's right there. If you put podcast right after it, and it actually shows up in the SERPs, believe it or not, two right below.
Does it show a knowledge panel? Does it show a knowledge panel?
Yes. Yep. It does. It shows. So put like just unsupervised spatial learning and then podcast into Google, and you'll see the. I see like the panel just says see results about unsupervised learning. So it's let me see if I can send the pictures.
It looks more like a disambiguation box.
Yeah, it's not very like. I agree. Like, do you see like what it's showing below the in the SERPs as well?
Yeah, that's not a podcast one either.
Okay, so that's something else.
Yeah, one of the things that you look for on it is it's using the new wider SERP. So that's one of the distinguishing factors.
It's more like a featured snippet than a podcast, than a knowledge.
My headphones are in
Then-
problem, so
It's very similar to a featured snippet, Bill. I agree. Because now featured snippets are going to have that wide SERP piece above it. Make it stand out even more.
I like how they're putting the episodes actually in the SERPs though. That's cool. But
you can find one if you put in Jason Barnard.
Jason Barnard?
Yeah. And he also has a regular knowledge panel as well.
You know what else? Yeah, you know what else I just did is put in. So I went to the see results on that first one, and it actually gave me the knowledge panel. This is bizarre. I'll put the query in the picture right in here, but yeah. So that's a big improvement for podcasts. I think that's a great feature.
Well, if they actually used it on more than a handful of people, yeah, it'd be a really great feature.
Hopefully they're just waiting to roll it out, maybe.
I would think that if they wanted it to be larger, they would have used the Google podcast database, which would be how they do businesses and a few. At least one,
sense. Yeah.
And if you look up a band or something like that, they'll use something like Spotify or a major player. So Libsyn, where I host my videos and podcasts, is one of the largest on the net.
They've been using Music Brains as a knowledge base to build knowledge panels.
Is that for musicians and
that's for musicians
like that?
That's how Jason Bernard got his start. That's how Lily Ray got her knowledge panel.
Oh, really? Because they were in that DB, not anything to even do with podcasting, really.
Lily was curious why she didn't have a knowledge panel, and she was in a band as a teenager. So I suggested start with Music Brains. So she did, and she got a knowledge panel right away.
Wow.
And she's managed to switch it to show that she's an SEO.
Nice.
Oh, and then they gave her a knowledge panel for an SEO.
And so did Jason. Jason started out as a Music Brains member, and
You're saying I
they
need to
built
get
a
my
knowledge.
guitar back out.
Yeah, there's actually 2 or 3 places for bands that they'll use. Music Brains is one. Spotify is one. I wrote an article on it. There's a third one too. I just can't remember it right now.
If you're in one of the structured data directories like Freebase or Metadata.
Right, that's what I thought, that they were using data out of Wikidata for that, right?
Yeah, right. Either Wikidata or Freebase, yeah.
Yeah, which is a Wikidata extension of Freebase?
Wikidata it's a branch of Wikipedia that was started in Germany. It's a volunteer organization that
just to handle the entities, eh?
It took on structured data about entities.
Interesting.
And
very similar to Freebase.
The people Freebase was a volunteer group, and the people of Freebase said people Wikidata are doing so good they should take a place.
Yeah, because Google owned Freebase at the end, right?
Yep.
Right.
I remember they bought them.
When they bought MetaWeb was in charge of Freebase.
Oh,
they
okay.
were running Freebase. So
right.
when Google acquired MetaWeb, they acquired Freebase.
Right.
Freebase had lots of entities at that point too. They had millions.
I could make a joke about Richard Pryor, but I'll just leave it.
What do you think of Google saying, like, basically they're saying that link reporting tools like Majestic, Ahrefs, Moz, whatever.
Didn't need to say it. They said it probably 10 years ago. That any of those reporting tools, don't worry about them. We ignore them.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, it's like saying like Alexa gets your site ranked higher in Google. It doesn't. It's just their synthetic ratios that they make up on their own, or the tools make up.
Well, they're also very low quality sites, right? So
right. Alexa works off of a plugin on your browser.
Yep.
So you install the plugin on your browser and you visit your website frequently, and you rank higher in Alexa.
Yeah.
I remember when people were selling.
Somebody sends you an email. Your Alexa rank is very low. That should hurt you in search engines, shouldn't it? You can pay us a low fee of $10 a month, and your Alexa rank will increase.
Yeah.
Great. I don't need visitors with browser plugins coming to my website. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think they're talking about like tools that also just make their own version of PageRank, right? Like MozRank and all that stuff. They're just saying it's invalid again, which is, we all know is
you could build websites with low quality pages pointing to pages you want to rank for, and those are known as doorway pages. And Google's been saying since 2002, no doorway pages.
Right.
People still make them.
Yeah, they make them all the time. Like,
well, you can still find content where it says that's the way to optimize the site. You know, if they paid attention, they'd see that the article was written in 1999.
That's why you don't put dates on your posts.
Oh man, I think that should be I don't take something seriously if there's not a date on it. don't know when it was really written or what it really is about, do you?
I don't take it seriously if it's got this year's date on it. The 2021 definitive guide to getting rank brain pages to rank higher in search engines.
Rank brain pages. Oh gosh. Yeah. There's so much of that out there though. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And how do I know it works? Because I have a gut instinct about that's how Google set up their machine learning.
If you're looking for, I notice now that Google has fallen in love with lists. Like if you do any kind of query around a product, right?
Yeah.
You'll get a whole bunch of these. The top 20 SEO tools, those kind
They
of
want comparisons in the lists. Yeah. Like
list after post of, and they're all listing the same site.
They like lists because it's easy for the machine. Plain and
it's
simple.
easy for us too to get a lot of data from a list that's posted on this into the SERPs, you know. We can see the top 10 of whatever the query is. That's a lot of information Google's passing on to us.
I guess I'm just lazy. I've never wanted to look at 10 things to write an article like that. I figure there's an easier way to do it.
I never was inspired to write the top 10 Italian restaurants in Carlsbad, California. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never seen you write with lists, and I've never seen you make like on your blog make a list page. I mean, I don't know if you have or not, but like, yeah, the top 5 like ways to do it. Yeah, most. I mean, if Google likes them, though, I guess it's interesting to experiment with them. But if you're more just getting impressions than if they're showing them all.
Chances are, if Google likes them, it's because people search for them.
Yeah.
Because Google wouldn't show them if people didn't search for them.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, I get it if you're running a company that's doing like travel, for top 10 places to travel in Maine, something like that, like or hotels to stay at, if for bed or B&Bs, whatever, that makes sense for a list. You know, there's some content where it's perfect, but a lot of other content where it's not.
Am I the only one who hates continuous scroll?
Yeah, I hate it.
And it's not infinite scroll. There's nothing infinite about it.
I think they just call it continuous because everybody hates infinite. So they think they'll get a better result if they call it continuous.
Well, it's not infinite because it stops at page 4.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. It's not continued to the very end. It's they'll. Oh, okay.
For me, it depends on how things are executed. Not so much, I don't care about the search results, but like with people with low bandwidth like we have, if they're preloading the next page, that really impacts how a lot of us view the internet.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't want you to start loading anything until I click and say I'm ready, especially if you're showing a video somewhere.
So you tell me you didn't like Google Instant Results previously?
Oh, Jesus, no.
Oh, gosh. That was a disaster.
That's what I'm typing.
Yeah, I don't think, like, the only reason I can see them for doing it is they think that all that's stopping people from going to the second page is that they have to click. And sorry, boys, I doubt that's the reason. I think people know after 10, the wrong query, I need to re-query this.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't find what you're looking for in the first 10 results of Google, yeah, in very few cases are you going to find it in the next tab.
Well, that's why Google started adding knowledge panels and query revisions, because chances are you got something wrong.
Right.
And the desktop still has pages. It still has the, however many, the 1 through 10 at the very bottom. It's just mobile that has the see more results. So, I mean, you can technically be on page 2 still. But yeah, it's a.
Well, I just don't see the point in it, and I think it's, even on a phone. Like the phone is the last place you want to do something like that. It's already quite a bit slower than the browser. If you're going to do that, you do it on a browser, not in the phone.
That's true.
That's kind of ass-backward implementation, if you ask me.
No, you're exactly right. Like, I mean, having a button at the bottom that says "See More," it's nice. I guess it's not that bad to have. It's more convenient for a mobile device, I'd say. But I'm using an iPhone. I don't know if it's different on the Android devices.
Yeah, I just don't think people know on Google. If you don't see it in the top 10, you're probably not going to see it in the next tab. So they're going to go re-query.
Less than 3% go to the second page, something like that.
There's not a valid business case for continuous scroll.
Yeah,
correct. That's my point. And hey, how would you like to be the ads at the bottom? Right? You're now on page 4 instead of page 1. Is that true, Steve?
Yeah.
There you go. Do you want to buy that place anymore?
Well, the other thing we're starting to see is they're actually reducing the number. Depending on the search, you either have no ads or more ads.
Yeah.
Oh, so you either get 4 or 5 or nothing.
Yeah. Well, if you search insurance, it's crazy.
Knowledge panels and stuff, I've got clients who are like, well, we want to do some advertising. You start doing some searches around their niche, and it's like, we can run some ads, but I'm not seeing any ads at all in your entire industry. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, we've heard complaints. It's like, okay.
You know why that is? No one searches for it.
Well,
they have very low search counts, Steve.
The usually low search counts. They're usually extremely local, and and any search at all, if it doesn't bring up national brands, it brings up a knowledge panel of some sort, and there's just no ads.
So if you put example Newcastle, New Hampshire, you're going to find very few ads targeting. Right. Yeah, that would make almost no sense.
But for some reason, those ads cost more when you do get them than if you ran a national ad.
Do you think there'd be many ads around the keyword Amish cart?
That's, you never know, man.
Join Amish community so you can learn online how to.
I was surprised the amount of searches. I worked for a company that built Amish furniture.
Yeah.
Or sold Amish furniture. I could not believe the amount of queries that were looking for exactly that. It blew me away. We're talking hundreds of thousands because people want that. They know quality is Amish and you get a good deal.
Except for those of us who used to live in Amish country know just the opposite. We never referred to Amish as quality. Specific craftsmen, yes. But generally, Amish, anything is no better or worse than anything else. It just takes longer to get it. And you pay twice as much.
I remember the Amish heater was being sold on television. It was a big thing. And yeah, remember that thing? And I am sure there are tons of queries on Google for it, but it's showed people, Amish people assembling it, and then the inside of it was actually like an electrical device.
Yeah.
I remember driving through Pennsylvania, and this Amish kid was skateboarding down the street.
Yep.
Oh.
It was a
well, there's no engine.
It was a homemade skateboard,
Yeah, that's fair.
So
Yeah.
the thing that most people don't understand about the Amish community is it's not a homogenous group. Every church has its own rules. And
Right.
depending on who is the current pastor of that church determines what rules that group is going to follow. So if you get a progressive pastor who will allow a single telephone in a booth on a telephone pole that's available to the community, great. And if he allows like workspace generators, you can't tie into the grid, but you can have a generator. Great. The next person may come along and go, nope, that's too progressive. Get rid of all that stuff. And you have to.
Back to the Stone Age.
What's the difference between having a generator and a just connecting to the grid? Like, how is that different?
You preach it's all in charge. It is amazing. And if you want to hear some great music, there's a band that you can listen to called the Electric Amish. That is some great music.
They are the one group that I never type into Facebook ads or Google ads for a demographic to go after. Like, I mean,
well, I mean, you can't really ignore them either because you've got the younger generations come up, and when they generally turn 18, they're allowed to take some time off.
Rumspringa.
Yep.
They're allowed to go out in the city and decide if they want to stay there or come home.
They get a year, right?
I'm kind of always amazed at how many of them go back.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. It's quite an eye opener. Could you imagine living in Pennsylvania in an Amish community, and the next day you've taken a plane into New York City and you're in Manhattan?
where we lived in Indiana, there's a fairly large Amish community there, and friends would come to visit, and they're like, "Well, we want to see the Amish community," and it's like, "Okay," and you just drive through farmland. And they're like, "Well, how do you know who's Amish and who isn't?" I said, "Well, see that house there?" They go, "Yeah." I go, "Do you see any electric lines going to that house?" And they go, "No, that's an Amish house."
It's not very bright inside at night. It's only got candle power and can't see.
You look for the dark spots in the middle of the night, but it's cool. I enjoy it. I mean, it's fun to visit. There's some great people in there, and I watched 2 teenage boys drag race their buggies. I always thought that racing was just genetically inbred to men, competition in racing. And I was on a motorcycle one day, and there were 2 boys side by side at a stop sign, and I'm behind them, like, what is going? And all of a sudden, I hear them screaming and hollering and hauling down the road, and it's like, oh my god, they're drag racing.
That is awesome.
It was the coolest thing. It was like, okay, yeah, they're just kids like everybody else.
0 to 6, 1 horsepower. Yeah. Yep. That's pretty cool, though. That really is. Like, yeah. I mean, people are inherently very similar, but I can't imagine. I remember there was a show called Breaking Amish or something where that was
just a wee bit fake.
Yeah. Like, become MMA fighters and stuff, but like I think overall, like, I think this lack of education in that community, and in addition to not having any real healthcare, or it's everything's focused around the religion. So what are they going to do if they even want to work in society? They're kind of up a creek.
Construction.
They could do that. Yeah, there's jobs.
They work in most of the trades. They work construction. They work in furniture factories. They, farming. All of these, we used to laugh. It's like at the end of the world, the Amish are going to be here. There is very little you could do to drive an Amish community lower than it is now.
Right.
So,
I have nothing against them at all. I think they're. I just think that it's sad that the people, like, they get that year to see what the world's like, but then the world's going to tell them, "Hey, you don't have any skills that you can really turn. You could dig."
That's not true either, because I mean, a significant percentage of the kids in my daughter's high school do just fine in school. They just don't go on to college.
But if you've never had any education, like if you, I think
But
they
that's
have.
not. I don't know of any Amish community that does not have any education. They all go to the local public schools.
They do?
And chances are you've seen
They
barn
probably
raising.
have to.
You've seen
Well,
barn raising communities.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know that they actually attended public school. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
They have their own schools.
okay.
They have the right to go to a public school if they want to, or they can homeschool if they want.
Yeah. There's a fair percentage of Amish kids in those communities going to just regular public high school. I mean,
that okay. Then I take back what I
To
said.
prepare for
If they're
when you
doing
go
that,
out on your own, probably.
yeah.
I thought it was all just a religious lecture.
Oh no. Nope. But I also learned when my daughter was in high school that the Amish kids tend to throw the best parties. There's generally nobody around to tell them not to.
Right, and they have big barns.
Great big barns.
The cops won't show up.
Nope. Cops don't mess with them. So
Yeah, it's interesting to see societies like that still can exist in this country. It's cool. It's good that we actually people allow it. I mean, for if you want to live that way. I mean, it's like kind of going back in time. I've only gone through Pennsylvania, Dutch country, like twice, and it was pretty amazing. But I guess I didn't know as much as I thought I did about the Amish.
yeah. Now, if you want to get a barn built really fast, hire an Amish crew.
Yeah, hand built, right? They'll do.
Don't make all his friends.
And they'll knock it out.
Oh yeah, I think they've got to be innovative and good builders to do anything. I mean, if they're building their own homes and their everything, yeah. So like,
What's funny is in a lot of situations, the modern world is contradictory to what, I mean, it's like we've got Amish barns that are 150 years old. They're fine. And then a local building inspector will come in and say, well, that needs steel brackets up there. And it's like, this has been here for 150 years. I guarantee you that connection up there is not going anywhere. And a steel bracket added to it does nothing. We saw the same thing in the Southwest with the people that were building out of Adobe, and the concrete guys got involved, and now all Adobe has to have 20% concrete mix. It's like, but these Adobe buildings have been here for several thousand years. They're still here. They didn't have concrete in them. It's just, stomping on historical construction techniques just because it's not modern.
Sometimes that stuff lasts longer.
Yeah.
It's not built from the throwaway society.
Exactly.
so have you guys seen that the new Google phones were released? A lot of new hardware for Apple, but the Google phones are focused more on AI. They have Tensor in them. I think might have to do something with Mom.
Federated machine learning has been going on in mobile devices, Pixels, for years.
But this one, TensorFlow, like that's been added to the new Pixel apparently, and that's what's going to make it, quote, a game changer according to Google. And
yeah, I have seen at least one patent that talks about mobile devices with Tensor chips in them.
Yeah, that just got released today. So I was thinking.
I read that one 6 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, the phone release date, like when you can buy it.
And federated learning has been going on in Pixel devices for at least 2 years.
Yeah. The way the article I read sounded like it might be geared towards MUM. I don't know, a different type of layout possibly. We'll see what it looks like. but I'm not an Android person really. But it seems like having Tensor in there would be quite a big improvement.
It's like people building desktop computers 2 years ago with original equipment parts and including NVIDIA chips to do machine learning.
Yep.
So Google saw the NVIDIA chips and built Tensor chips.
Yep.
So they'd have their own proprietary chips that were basically designed for graphics.
Yep. Yeah. No.
Yeah, Google hasn't seen a good idea from somebody else that they didn't like.
That's very true statement. That is one of the, yeah.
That was what I picked up from that movie, The $1 Billion Code.
I wonder what their next social media network will
it's
be.
a series.
Yeah, it's not. I thought it's basically 4 movies.
Right. I saw the first 4 episodes, but I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
Okay. Then you're pretty close to the end. I thought there was 4. There might be 5 then.
I started watching it in German until I found the instructions on how to switch it to British English.
Yeah, I figured out how to turn all that stuff off in Prime.
I was reading the subtitles to get the plot when I first started watching it.
And then you realize that it's also in English.
Yeah.
One thing I love about Apple TV is that, or all these things, the streaming services, is you can change the language. Apple has the most, it seems like, but you can just drop. Yeah, it's beautiful if the program actually offers that.
Yeah, it was easier to watch in English.
Yeah, just don't watch their lips when they're talking because it didn't match up. Did you notice that?
Deutsch was not so.
Well, they did look German.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And that most of the movie is in Germany. Also, would be a
What's
good,
the name of the movie?
The $1 Billion Code.
Oh.
It's about a dispute between Google Earth and a company called TerraVision in Germany. It's a true story.
Oh, I'll have to check it out.
They developed a way to fly in on objects. In Google Maps and Google Earth, you used to be able to fly in to certain areas and get closer and closer. And they brought it to some conference in the 1990s, and everybody wanted to view their hometown using this program. So they let everybody zoom in on their hometown.
Yeah, and it actually turned out that it was easier to do it on the internet than it was to do it on a PC.
Makes sense. The stronger processor running the server.
No, to do it at home required the most powerful computer you could buy, which was made by Silicon Graphics and cost thousands of dollars.
So
they came up with an algorithm that was decentralized. It had tiles. So when you wanted to focus in a place, you get different tiles. You narrow it down, you focus more on other tiles that show the smaller parts.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, but in the end, Google pretty well copied it.
And they went on the swing
for it.
Yeah.
It was a plot by Google to have people set the prices for how much their software was worth.
Yeah, it was also Google contacted a lot of companies in the same way, offered to buy them. Then when they came back, they say, nah, we don't want to buy you. And then
when the companies agreed to the prices and said, that's a good price, the company later tried to sue Google because Google sold the technology, and Google said, this is how much you said the price, how much this technology is worth. So that's all we'll pay you for it.
Yeah, in this case, they tried to say it was free because they didn't charge for it. And then their own documentation proved that they made $700 million off it so far.
Rather, Google charges the end user.
Because it was free, they didn't make any money. As soon as they said that, I started laughing and saying, wow, yeah, there's value to that. Just having people come to the website is worth money to Google.
Oh, a million things. I mean, I remember Google Earth Pro was a thing that they actually sold to. I think the government probably. I don't know if the government used it, but I know like certain enterprise applications you could use it for that. And I mean, Google Maps, I think you can even have a paid version for. But today, but I'm assuming at the end of that movie, Google wins and the other company walks empty-handed.
It's not a movie; it's a series.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many parts there are.
It's on Amazon, you said?
Google didn't win, but they didn't lose either. They didn't have to pay him any money, but they didn't win either.
It's on HBO Max.
HBO. Okay, great. That's awesome.
Oh, is that where? I think I watched it on Prime or Netflix. I'm not sure.
I think it's on Netflix. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a series. I'm not sure how many parts.
I'll have to check it out. That's fantastic. So yeah, it makes sense. Tiles for if they're rendering the graphics quickly, because I remember Google Earth.
That was a pretty interesting show, anyhow. What I thought was kind of interesting was the woman did research and found out that they did that. What they did to this company, they did it to literally hundreds.
Now this company didn't accept the price. They said, we'd be interested in doing a collaboration with you. And that's where they differed from the other companies. The other companies all said, it's a good price. We'll think about that.
Yeah, and then Google didn't buy it because they basically thought that none of these patents could be would hold up in court.
Yeah.
They seemed to believe that they were the only ones who could have patentable ideas.
Right. Whereas these guys are coming up with the ideas and then getting an agreement and then developing the technology.
Yeah, that's criminal. I mean, IP patents are
not criminal, but it's not exactly "don't be evil."
Yeah, I was just thinking that that slogan was coming out.
Well, that's what the owner of the other company kept saying. They keep saying, "Don't be evil." And what's this?
They're like, that's the marketing PR guys. So it's not a section off.
Well, I don't think it was ever true there.
No, I agree.
It was by Urs Holtze. He was the one that came up with "Don't be evil." He was in marketing. He was in charge of data centers.
Oh, okay. So what do you know what prompted him to come up with that one? Just a good line, or?
They were having the group meetings and they were coming up with mission statements and things like that. And that's one he came up with.
It's one that definitely stuck with a lot of communities. It's probably one of the most memorable ones for them. By a lot, yeah. I mean, so Google AMP seems to be disappearing for in the SERPs a little bit more. Do you guys notice that at all? Less AMP pages?
Well, almost all of the AMP that was in there in the past was because of Discover, and once they dropped it for Discover, everybody dropped it.
I think that's what's happening is
it was just extra work that you had to do.
When's the last time you saw Google Instant Answers?
A long time ago, many moons. Probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
back when Facebook was going to do the same thing, right? Facebook instant.
Another thing I was thinking about this morning was that you hardly ever see rating reviews in the SERP. You're going to see a lot of them in the local results, the local pack, but you don't see that many in the SERPs anymore. That's because a while back, they announced that they'll only take that data off of third-party sites. They won't take it off the site that it's for.
Right. It has to be through a specific vendor or the vendors that are verified with
It had all it said. It didn't say specific vendors. It said it had to be on a third-party site.
That makes sense. But like, what I guess what I'm getting at is like, if you want to have your, you know how you can make your own reviews if you want and have them hosted on your site or posted on your site with just a plugin that has nothing but structured data, or you can have like Review.io or Trustpilot or something like that. That then they're supposed to be verified through Google for the ability to show the reviews.
Have you ever seen a Trustpilot review in the results? All I've ever seen is Google.
I've definitely seen Trustpilot reviews in e-commerce results and Reviews.io and YOLO and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Don't see
if you just search search for products in e-commerce and then use Bill with and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's because like I do agree with you.
The reason for that is that's not a site rating. That's a product rating, right? There's a difference.
Oh, yeah.
So that you can probably have on your site. They don't require a third-party site. This was basically the site review stuff that it had to be on a third party.
Well, it's past the top of the hour. So that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.